Among the many historic mysteries associated with the College of William and Mary, the underground tunnels are one of the most presently infamous. Myths and rumors about an extensive underground network of subterranean passageways, connecting ancient crypts, secret society hideouts, and even underground railway systems, continue to pop up on internet discussion forums almost 50 years after the tunnel's reinforced ceiling. Here, we'll compile and explore the many mysteries through special collections microforms, previous Flat Hat entries, and information provided by the university faculty and facilities management. It's important to note that William and Mary has more than one underground tunnel system. There's the Jamestown Road Underpass, the mystified Wren Crypt, the historic 18th-century drainage ducts, and most prominently, the underground steam tunnels. A few of these independent systems, each serving entirely different purposes, were previously physically connected, leading many to simply refer to all of them collectively as the underground tunnels of William and Mary. We begin here, the oldest academic building in America, the Wren Building. Constructed between 1695 and 1700, the Wren Building is an influential historic site in United States history, with new discoveries being made about it with each passing decade. One of those discoveries, originally made in 1924, was of a discontinued 18th century duct that speculated to have connected the building to a westward location, being near Lake Matoka. Several theories were proposed in the wake of the finding, ranging from the tunnel serving as a military passageway used during the Revolutionary War, to a secret emergency path prepared in case of Native American attacks. However, based on the tunnel's destination, the most widely accepted explanation is that it's an old drainage duct designed to channel stormwater away from the academic structures and mitigate flooding. We were unable to pinpoint the exact path the tunnel takes, but based on how the tunnel was discovered while installing pipes for the construction of Monroe Hall, we suspect it, or at least a branch of it, veers north after exiting the Wren Building. While restoring the Wren Promenade in 2019, workers discovered a section of a similar 18th century drainage duct, exiting through the basement of Wren before moving directly westward, ending at the Sunken Gardens. It is possible the duct continued further west, but was destroyed during the construction of the Sunken Gardens in the 1930s. Also at the Wren Building is another notorious subterranean site, the Wren Crypt, located under the Wren Chapel. Rumor has it that the college fraternities, as a part of their initiation ceremony, sent new members to steal the bones of those buried in the crypt, allegedly using the steam tunnels to gain entry into the Wren basement and into the burial sites. Regardless of the validity of that particular rumor, it is true that students had surreptitiously accessed the crypt in the past, leading to the desecration of several of the vaults and their contents. Such incidents have prompted the college to heighten security around the late 70s. According to the director of the Spotswood Society, Charles Fulcher, all former connections of the steam tunnels to the crypt have since been filled in, with the only entry point now maintained and guarded by the Society. Students aren't the only recorded looters of the tombs, as during the occupation of Williamsburg by the Union Army in 1862 of the American Civil War, soldiers pillaged the Wren Building of several artifacts before setting fire to the structure. According to a fall 1995 issue of the Society of the Alumni magazine, included in the stolen items was the coffin plate of Lord Botetourt's coffin. Miraculously, the plate turned up 30 years later in an upstate New York jeweler shop. The plate was returned to the college in 1889 and now rests in the Getty House in colonial Williamsburg. The article also alludes to the college attempting to X-ray scan the contents of the sealed tombs in 1992. The claim contradicts several online internet forums stating the college had removed the remains of the deceased sometime in the 70s or 80s. The most likely answer is that roughly in the late 60s, early 70s, the college gathered what little bones were left of the skeletons and placed them back into the coffins, sealing them with concrete. Any students who entered the tombs after the project would have seen a barren crypt devoid of visible bones. Notable individuals buried in the Wren Crypt include Norburn Berkeley, the 4th Baron Botetourt, Bishop James Madison, and Peyton Randolph, president of the First Continental Congress. In the fall of 1960, the college opened an underground pedestrian walkway underneath Jamestown Road, directly in front of Willis Hall. Administration wanted a way for students to access the newly constructed campus center without having to cross through traffic. The Jamestown Underpass was meant to be that alternative access way. The campus community continued to use the tunnel throughout the 1960s, occasionally hosting school-sponsored events inside of it. However, over the course of the following decade, the tunnel slowly transformed into a hostile environment. Unauthorized student graffiti lined the walls, which leak water from the road above, especially during storms. Reportedly, the tunnel had flooded on several occasions. Eventually, the underpass became a site for fraternity hazing illicit drug use, and potentially sexual assault. Coupled with how students found it easier to traverse Jamestown Road via crosswalk, the college decommissioned the tunnels in the early 70s, eventually backfilling the entrance in 2010. Parts of the tunnel entrance can still be seen today, along with clouds of steam seemingly pouring out of the former entry. That is because facilities management repurposed the underpass to house new steam pipes in the early 2010s. That brings us to the final, most extensive, and most infamous of the underground tunnels, the steam tunnels. Most contemporary discussion with respect to underground tunnels refer to these steam tunnels with students reportedly breaking and entering to explore.
So the steam tunnels that run underneath Old Campus are definitely one of the big points of mystery, something that people like to know a lot about. When they come to William and Mary, maybe they've heard stories in the past. Right now we're standing in the basement of the Wren building. We are directly underneath the piazza, the walkway that's on the back of the building that faces the sunken garden. Right behind me over here is one of the old access points to those steam tunnels. It's actually been bricked up. So if you were to shine a flashlight into the tunnel, you would see a brick wall about 10 feet down, leaving just enough room for some of the pipes, but not for anybody actually to walk through those spaces anymore. The steam tunnels run across almost all of Old Campus, connecting buildings and really transporting steam through buildings that is part of the heating system. There are other utility lines that are run through there as well. So the utility function maintains, but access points that were once found in the basement of many of the Old Campus structures have been closed up and sealed, still permitting access for the facilities department that supports and cares for the university, still access for them to reach the points that they need to make sure that these utilities keep functioning as they should.
According to Central Utilities Supervisor Larry Jackson and Director of Facilities Operation and Maintenance Brian Crystal, the steam tunnels were most actively used during the 1960s, supplying steam and other utility waters from the Old Campus power plant, now replaced with the ceramic studio, to most of Old Campus, Bryan Complex, and the Landrum Jefferson line. When initially constructed, human access was provided alongside the steam pipes to allow workers to easily locate and perform repairs on damages. But with the advent of sturdier pipe material, workers no longer needed the instant access. Instead, facilities management now uses direct bury pipes that cut through all of campus. The only time workers need to go underground is when accessing vaults located in key points of the system grid, where one can control the flow of steam, chilled, and hot water.
On average, if you count all of the steam and chill water supplied buildings from this plant alone, there are 36 individuals being supplied by that plant.
And what that primarily does is that then mitigates each building from needing its own chiller. So because we can produce at scale, that's more efficient than doing it individually. Like what you'll see, it burns a lot of fuel, don't get me wrong, but the aggregate of doing it individually rather than doing it at scale would be much more. Like we would burn 50% to 70% more fuel. So by having the district plants that we have, we can reduce fuel consumption and supply and provide a very efficient and redundant supply. If a steam plant, because we don't run all 3 steam plants at one time, we can transition over. We can make enough steam to supply those 36 buildings on what, 2?
On 1 boiler.
We can do it on 1?
The only time I've ever been needed to start a second boiler is in the wintertime when I drop into the single digits and below. And even then, technically, I don't need to start one. Here's where the efficiency comes in. The boilers work most efficient at about the 80 to 85% firing range. And when it gets below 10 degrees, they start hitting 100%. It's actually more efficient for me to turn the second boiler on at a low rate.
Currently, these pipes occasionally flow through the old steam tunnels, but for the most part run independently from the old tunnel system, essentially making most of the fabled steam tunnels devoid of steam. Based on a campus blueprint from 2013, the tunnels begin at the main power plant, turning into the ceramic studio before proceeding north past Taliaferro, now called Willis Hall. The tunnel proceeds directly under the Jamestown crosswalk and under what is now the hearth before splitting. One tunnel snakes around Jefferson Hall, before moving directly under the covered walkway connecting the building to Barrett. There is no indication that the steam tunnels reach any further. Disconnected from the system, however, is another utility tunnel connecting the short distance between McLaughlin Street Hall and the slope in front of Chandler. Back to the intersection, the tunnel continues straight until reaching a 45, splitting again. One side ends at Washington Hall after supplying steam to Ewell, while the other continues north to a T-junction. One end moves towards the Wren Building, while the other supplies Tucker, Tyler, now Chancellor's, and Blair Hall. Additionally, the tunnel moves even further north, connecting to Monroe and ending at Blow Memorial Hall. The steam pipes extend even further in the form of direct bury pipes, providing steam to Old Dominion, the entirety of the Bryan complex, and eventually East Zabel Stadium. However, with the transition to vault-controlled direct bury pipes, over the past 15 years, many of the tunnels have either been sealed with concrete or backfilled with gravel, meaning most of the tunnels outlined previously no longer exist. It's important to note these spaces, both the steam tunnels and steam vaults, pose an immediate threat to life and safety. With the rearrangement and reconstruction of campus both above and below grounds, the remaining parts of the tunnels have become an even more inhospitable environment. According to Central Utilities Supervisor Larry Jackson, the tunnels have low levels of oxygen, deathly high levels of hydrogen sulfide, enough to cause olfactory paralysis, heat levels that can exceed 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius, walls littered with asbestos and other harmful materials, and obstacles that, if caught in, would require a deep void rescue team for extraction. Facilities management personnel are able to avoid these hazards due to the following precautions. 1. Preparation of barricades and retrieval equipment when entering. 2. Supplemental ventilation to provide fresh air that would otherwise not be present. 3. Hard hats and safety glasses and fall protection gear is always worn when working in these spaces. 4. Usage of 4 gas analyzers to monitor oxygen levels and dangerous gases checked before and during work in the spaces. 5. Minimum of 2 personnel present during any and all operations. 6. The notifying of campus police when beginning entry and completing operations. Additionally, according to university policy, entering any form of underground utility spaces without authorization is grounds for immediate expulsion. Students have seemingly had a fascination with these tunnels for over 60 years. There's something about the idea of an extensive system of restricted subterranean passageways. It's a feast for our imaginations. But all myths and legends must eventually come to an end, with facilities management continuing to improve utility infrastructure and performance through modern means of piping. More and more of the few remaining strips of tunnel will soon disappear entirely.